There's vegetables and there's fruit, so don't just get judged by pizza. So, January 2nd, 2022. Carlin, do you know what is important about that date? It was our first Sunday here in this role. We had come before and they voted on us. We had to do a tryout and see if they liked us enough. They voted for us. So January 2nd, 2022 was our very first Sunday here. And I preached a sermon titled, I'm going to go ahead, you guys all just start saying it. I'm sure you all know it. No, it was titled In, Through, and Around. Today, as you look in your bulletin, I'm using the same title with a fresh text because I need us to remember and I need us to see how God works in, through, and around us. That He is working to this day in, through, and around us. See, oftentimes we take it for granted that God is still working or still present or still active in our world. See, we go through life with very little expectation of God. We may throw Him a prayer out every once in a while if there's something that we need, but we really live most of our days with little expectation of our God. But as your pastor, here is what I want our church to get to a place of. I want us to get to a place where we have great expectations of our great God. That we have great expectations of our great God. Because why else would we worship Him? Why else would we gather here? Why else would we give our Sundays? Why else would we give our money if He's not a great God? And so I want us to move to a place of understanding that He is a great God and that we see Him work in, through, and around us. Carlin and I have lived at 5 or 6 different addresses in 4 different cities across 3 different states. That requires a lot of moving, and moving requires a lot of uncertainty and stress. But I have seen God work in each one of those moves. To Georgia, to College Station, Texas, to Farmers Branch. I have seen God work. And the way I've said it, when people say, how are things going? How has the move gone? How is this transition period? I've been able to say at each transition in our life, locationally, that God has worked in ways that we would not have been bold enough to ask. God has done for us and in us things that we would have felt greedy asking for. Jobs, houses, friendships, schools were taken care of in ways that we would not have been bold enough to ask for, and yet this is the blessings that we have received. And so today I want you to, as we embark into our text, to hold on to these 2 things. 1, God is working in, through, and around us. Say that with me. In, through, around us. In, through, around us. All right, you're going to get that. And the other thing I want you to see as you watch God work, that God works in ways that at times we would not even be bold enough to ask. So with that said, I invite you to turn to Ruth chapter 2. We're in the book of Ruth. We've made it to chapter 2 now. And to catch you up on the story, as a reminder, or maybe you've been out, but Ruth is the story of a few women. There is a woman named Naomi who is married to a man named Elimelech, and they were Israelites. A famine hit Israel. They moved to Moab, a hated country with a terrible origin, and they moved to Moab to find food. Soon, Naomi's husband dies, and now she's left with just her 2 sons. Her 2 sons marry Moabite women, which were forbidden by Israelite law. But they marry these women, and then after about 8 or maybe 10 years, the 2 sons of hers die. And so now you have, and then where we pick it up, you have the story of Naomi, the mother-in-law, and Ruth, her daughter-in-law, that has followed her back to Israel, and they are stuck in a male-dominated society, needing a way to provide for themselves and to be protected. And so that is where we picked up. They have journeyed back to Israel, and it says this in chapter 2, verse 1. Now Naomi had a relative of her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Again, this time period is the time of the judges where everybody does what is right in their own eyes, where the people of God are abandoning the law of God and the person of God to live how they desire. And they come back to Israel, and there's a glimpse of hope given to us, isn't there? There is a man. Now, he's not related to Naomi, but he's related to her husband, her late husband. Will he care about her? He says that this man is a worthy man, and that word probably encapsulates that he is both a wealthy man, a man of a great reputation, and a godly man. So, we know that there is a man in Israel, in Bethlehem, somewhere, that is related to Naomi, and he's a great guy. That's what we know. And this provides some hope for us as we read. But let's continue on. See, verse 2 and 3. Before we read it, hang on, let me say this. I have it written in the margins. If we are not careful, though, we will read verse 1. If you'll go back to verse 1, John. We will read verse 1, and we will say that the hope of Ruth and Naomi rests on Boaz. That he will be their Savior. That he could be everything they need. And if we do that, we're missing what's really going on. It is not Boaz that we need to save us. Boaz is a central character. Ruth is a central character. Naomi is a central character. But the main figure of the story of Ruth, even though he doesn't say a word audibly, is God. The only salvation that Ruth and Naomi can have in the situation that they are in is for God to provide and to protect them. Boaz is going to be the outworking of that, but it is God that must work in, through, and around this whole situation for there to be provision and protection. You and I are tempted to look to a person to save us. We are tempted to look to a boss to give us that raise that we really need, to a hiring manager to give us the job that we really need, to a spouse to help us in our situations and to appease some of our desires, to calm some of our anxieties, to be with us in some of our chaos and our insufficiencies. And we are very, very tempted to look to a person to save us. But a job, a boss, a spouse, and even a child that you think you can live vicariously through and they can have your sports career that you never had because you lost you tore your ACL in sophomore year. We cannot look to people to save us. The book of Ruth will show us that it is God who is working in, through, and around. So let's jump into verses 2 and 3. We're going to kind of work our way through the chapter this morning in small segments at a time. It says this: So Ruth, the Moabite, reminding us of her foreignness, said to Naomi, her mother-in-law, "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of the grain after him in whose sight I shall find favor." Let me go and work to try to find some food and maybe somehow be nice to us. And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she set out, and she went and gleaned in a field after the reapers, and she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was part of the clan of Elimelech. Ruth understands we got to eat, right? Stomach is growling. We've made the 120-mile trek from Moab now to Israel. We've got a place maybe we're staying, but we need food. So Ruth says, I'm of able body. She's probably 25 or so at this time. I'm going to go out and work. And so she says, I'm going to go out and glean. I'm going to go out and pick up what is left over. See, the harvesters would be going through the land, and they would be grabbing these big bundles of barley, and then stuff would drop. And so Ruth is going, I'll just get whatever was left over, whatever drops. Also in Israel, God had instructed his people not to get the corners of their field, but to leave that for the sojourner, for the widow, for the orphan, and for the poor, that they may be provided for. because he sees them and he cares about them. And so Ruth says, I'm hoping to find a place where I can find favor and I can pick up enough food that maybe can sustain us. See, it's a dangerous task that Ruth is undertaking. A single woman going out into the field was going to be dangerous. Would she be abused? Would she be raped? Would she be mistreated? Would she find enough that they could even have so that they could eat and be sustained? Would they get onto her as a trespasser and push her away? She says, maybe I can find a place. And then it says, she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz. The text may make you think, oh, well, wow, how lucky is Ruth? But don't miss the hand of God that is present in this situation. Lamentations 3:37 through 38 says this. I think we have it on the screen. Yeah. Who has spoken and it came to pass unless the Lord commanded it? Verse 38. Is it not from the mouth of the Most High that good and bad come? What Lamentations is reminding us is that God is in control of everything. He is sovereignly over everything. We need to stop believing that we just got in the right place at the right time, that we just happened to get lucky, that by chance this happened. No, we need to start seeing these amazing moments in our life, not as chance encounters, but of divine appointments, as orchestrated opportunities, not a random running into. Because God is working. And in a world where we assume that we can control all things, the story of Ruth will remind us that God is a better God and He has a better plan, and His control of the world is way better than anything that we could come up with. So Ruth goes out to this field, verse 4 through 7. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and he said to the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they answered, the Lord bless you. We see that he is a godly man. His opening line in this story is speaking of Yahweh, who is in charge of all, that he's inviting them to know his presence. Verse 5, then Boaz said to the young man who was in charge of his reapers, whose young woman is this? The servants who was in charge of the reapers answered, she is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. And she said, please let me glean among and gather among the sheaves after the reapers. So she came, and she's continued from the early morning until now, except for a short rest. Boaz just happens to walk out that day and happens to see this woman, this foreigner, in his field. He asks about her, and he is told that she's the Moabite woman with Naomi, and then he's told of her work ethic, that she has been working since morning, probably a few hours now, with only a short rest. Let's keep going. Verse 8, Boaz now introduces himself. Then Boaz said to Ruth, now listen, my daughter. Do not go and glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessel and drink what the young men have drawn. Boaz, in a shocking way in that culture, has a conversation with Ruth. Before we unpack that conversation, here's what I need us to understand. God has been working in the heart and mind of Boaz. He is a godly man because God has been working in him, drawing Boaz closer to him, calling him to live in response to the good law that is laid down for God's people. Boaz isn't just a random person, some godless person. No, God has been working in him, and that is why he would even start this conversation and start this compassion for her. He gives her a few commands. That seems a little forward, but just hold them as that. He first says, stay here. Don't look around. Don't think, oh, that field seems to have a few more things laying on the ground. I'm going to rush over there. I'm going to go do that. I'm going to hop around. I'm going to be tempted that there's a bigger harvest I heard about. No. He says, stay here and you'll be provided for. Stay here. He says, stay close. Stay close with my young women. You don't have to be on the outside, on the outskirts. Stay close with them so that you're protected. And she's given privilege. And finally, he says, stay hydrated. You may go, wait, what? Well, one, it was late April, May when this is taking place at the beginning of the barley harvest. And she would be under the scorching heat of a desert-like land. Stay hydrated. But now there's a really interesting reversal that's happening here when he says this. See, the custom of that day was that foreigners at the well would draw water for Israelites. If it was all Israelites at the well, then the women would draw water for the men. Boaz here says, you, foreign woman, you can drink of what they have drawn. It's a reversal of expectations and compulsions. It's a reversal of the cultural order. It's a lot like what Jesus teaches when he invites the lepers near him or the children to sit on his lap, when he says that the last will be first, when he invites in the beggars and the homeless to come and to be a part of his party. There's a reversal of what is expected. God has been working in Boaz, and one of my former college pastors says this: whatever God is working in you, whatever God has put in you, he wants to bring out of you. God doesn't just put stuff in you so that you just have all the good stuff in you. What God puts in you, he wants to bring out of you. And so Boaz has been worked on by God, and now it is flowing out of him as he is showing compassion and care to Ruth. We'll keep going. Verse 10, she responds. She fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and she said, "Why have I found favor in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? I'm a stranger. I'm a nobody. I should be overlooked. I should be ignored. I should be pushed aside, and yet here you are showing love to me. I should be just existing, but you see me." I imagine as Ruth walked to the field that day, there was great timidity. She was anxious. She was worried. How are they going to respond? Will I be accepted? Will I be safe? She also felt that she wore a scarlet letter. I'm a Moabite. I'm a widow. Nobody wants anything to do with me. And for Boaz to call her over and say, I am going to take care of you, is shocking. Can you imagine what that feels like? Boaz here is showing her the love of God in tangible ways through himself. God is revealing his covenant faithfulness, kindness, and love, his goodness through the man of Boaz to Ruth, a woman he cares about. Boaz responds to her, verses 11 through 13 says, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has fully been told to me. How you left your father and your mother and your native land for a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you what you have done, and a full reward be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wing you have come to take refuge." And then Ruth said, "I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servant, though I am not one of your servants." Boaz says, it has already been brought to me. In God's perfect way, the message of what Ruth has done towards Naomi, how she has shown the faithful love of God to Naomi, has been brought to his ears. So this wasn't a strange Moabite woman in the field. This was a woman he knew all about. And he says, the love that you have poured out to your mother-in-law is the love that God is going to pour out to you. May he bless you. May he provide for you. May he protect you. Under his wing, you can find refuge. What does that mean? It's like a little baby chick, finding refuge from the rain under the wing of the mother hen, going, I am protected with God. I am no longer an outsider. I'm included in. Notice what she says at the end. I have found favor in your eyes. Do you remember what she had hoped for when she left the home that morning? Look back at verse 2. That I may find a field to glean where I find favor. What she hoped for, what she wished for, maybe even what she prayed for, she's received. But how many of us forgot that that's what she hoped for, what she wished for, and what she prayed for? How many of us were like, oh, wow, that's great, that's awesome. But how many of us in our lives hope and wish and pray for certain things to happen? And then when we do, we just move on, kind of forgetting that we even hoped, wished, and prayed for it. Oh, yeah, I got this job. Not, I was praying for this job, and God provided. It doesn't lead us to hallelujah. It just leads us to the next problem, the next burden, the next situation we have to deal with. God has worked to answer her desires. We don't need to miss them. We'll finish with verses 14 through 17 for today. It says, at mealtime, this is probably lunch, Boaz said to her, come here and eat some of the bread and dip your morsel in the wine. So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed her the roasted grain, and she ate until she was satisfied, and she even had leftovers. And when she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying, let her glean even among the sheaves. Do not reproach her. And pull out some bundles for her and leave it for her to pick up or to glean. Do not rebuke her. So she gleaned in the field until evening, and she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Boaz has talked to her. She has seen, but now she's invited in. No longer on the outskirts. She's brought into the inner circle to eat with them. She is fed by Boaz. Here, eat some of the roasted grain. Whatever I'm eating, you can eat. She eats so much that she's stuffed, she's satisfied, and she has leftovers. She'll actually take the leftovers to her mother-in-law later in chapter 2. And then again, he reminds her, you will be protected. Stay here. They will not touch you. They will not abuse you. They will not take advantage of you. And he even says, and the ESV, in my opinion, does a really poor job of translating it, do not rebuke her or reproach her. The other translations that I think do a much better job say, do not insult her. Do not humiliate her. Do not gossip about her. Do not judge her. Do not shame her. Do not tease her or speak down to her. What is he saying? He is saying, do not treat her poorly in any way. Her circumstances that she's endured do not define her character. Yes, she's gone through it. But who she is not what she has experienced. Who you are is not what you have experienced. For some of us, our experiences in life tried their best to define us and to disqualify us and to burden us and to invalidate us. But circumstances do not define our character. That's the text that I'm going to read through. She returns back to her mother-in-law, and it says with an ephah of barley. Raise your hand if you look down at the footnote to figure out what that looks like, okay? Did it say 22 liters? Yeah, okay. Litres, maybe? Instead of spelled it differently, okay. Well, that doesn't really, I don't really work in volume very well. So what is that in pounds, right? That's estimated to be 30 to 50 pounds of barley that she took back that day. So let's end with in, through, and around. God is working in every character in this story. He is working in Ruth, drawing her to him and his people, though she didn't know them. God is working in her, changing her, creating a love for her mother-in-law that doesn't fit with any cultural schema that we could ever come up with. But only because God's been working in her. God has been working in Boaz, drawing Boaz to him, to follow him in a day when nobody was following God. Boaz does. And he is the one that God is going to use to help this widow. See, Boaz has been worked in God. He is not your average Israelite. Ruth has been worked in by God. She is not the same person she was in Moab. Even Naomi, we will see God is working in her to relieve the bitterness that she claims. God is working in them, but God is also working through the people of this narrative. Naomi is probably only alive because of Ruth. Because of the dangerous trek, because of maybe the inability to go out into work. Naomi owes a lot to Ruth. God has worked through Ruth, this Moabite woman, to bring sustenance and provision and protection to Naomi. God is working through Boaz to help, to heal, to provide for, to protect these women. God is working through these people. See, you may say, well, he was wealthy. That's great. Wealthy doesn't make you generous. There's a lot of wealthy people that are not generous at all. But Boaz says, what God has blessed me with, I want to share, to bless others. Finally, God is working all around this. It wasn't just, the Hebrew says that Ruth happened. I mean, the English says Ruth happened. The Hebrew says Ruth chanced upon chance to get to Boaz's field. Do you hear that? She chanced upon chance that she arrived in Boaz's field, and that's where she was working. No, God's hand was working and leading her to this place. Some of you may go, well, that's a little hokey. I probably would have too if I wouldn't have experienced it just so recently. A few weeks ago, I was prayer walking in what I call the Epsfield neighborhood. It's right there from Tom Thumb back towards the church. It's barriered by the branch that runs through town. That's a neighborhood that has really been pressed on my heart that I think we need to be ministering to. They hear our bells every single day. They should know who we are and what we believe. And so I was out there prayer walking one Thursday afternoon, and I was coming up to a T where the road ended and I had to go left or right. And I just said, you know what? Here I am praying for all these houses, for all these people, for this neighborhood. I'm going to try something I've never tried before. God, tell me, should I go right or left when I get to the T? God, should I go right or should I go left? And so I prayed. And I was 2 houses away. Now I'm 1 house away, still no answer. I get to the T, no real clarity on which way I should go. So then I go left. It was the logical way. It was back towards where my truck was. So I start going left, and I take probably 4 steps when I got a profound impression that said, turn around. It wasn't an audible voice. It wasn't a car parking. It wasn't a car wreck that I needed to run and go help. It wasn't some kid screaming, and laughing. I knew nothing of the difference except that God said, turn around. So I walked back and I went down the road that was down that direction. And within 4 houses, I met 2 different family units Up until that time, I'd probably been doing it for 30, 40 minutes. I'd met one person the whole time. And within the next 5 minutes, I met 2 separate groups of people. I got to pray with those people. I got to share what's going on and who we are and why I'm over here. And I get to hear about their family and learn about them. One I've even had a letter correspondence with since then, where we've written letters back and forth to each other, praying for one another. I just prayed and I asked, God, will you show me? I believe that you care which direction I go in, as simple as that sounds. And he did. God is working around us, but do we notice it? Do we listen for it? Do we even have a space in our life with it? God just happened to bring Boaz out to the field, and he happened to see Ruth. No. God was orchestrating these things. The main figure of the book of Ruth is God, and we will see his hand on display every moment of it. As we end this morning, I want you to consider, how has God worked in you? How is God working in you? Last week we were in our discussion group time, and Carlin, my wife, said, I know in the last year that God has changed my life tremendously. My outlook, my disposition, my gentleness, and my patience has been significantly changed, and I attribute that to God working in me. Do you have a story to tell where God has worked in you? Do you believe that God's working in you right now? Convicting you maybe of something? Comforting you in an area that's really hard and burdening? Maybe he's growing compassion in you towards others. I am not the same person I was 15 years ago. God has completely changed my life. I used to be pretty self-absorbed in a lot of ways. Now I'm blessed and cursed with this care for people over my care for myself. It's exhausting. But that wasn't me. I was a quiet person that was kind of off to themselves. Is God working in you? And if he is working in you, and I hope he's working in you, and if you're a believer that has the fruit of the Spirit flowing out of you, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control, he doesn't just want those things bubbling up in your gut. He wants to then bring them out of you. God doesn't just work in you. He wants to bring it out of you. And so can you see where God is working through you or wants to work through you? Oftentimes we disqualify ourselves, don't we? I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I can't do it. I'm not well-spoken. I don't know enough. You should use somebody else. I'm too busy. But maybe those opportunities that are showing up at your doorstep are invitations from God saying, here, I want to use you. Yeah, your child is exhausting. Look at the patience you've grown. Yeah, you and your sister used to not get along, but now you can honestly say, I love her, even if I don't like the things that she does. God wants to work through you in the relationships that you have. He wants to work through you at this church to make a difference. He wants to work through you. Even last week, Connie, Sunday night, told me, she said, I worked with the kids this Sunday, or recently, I can't remember exactly when it was, and she said, I've realized that God's not just working through me to teach our kids, but God's working through me to teach our child care workers who God is and how much he loves them. Do you see how God can work through you if you allow him? Finally, God is working all around you. All those moments of chance, of luck, of random encounters, we need to be seeing as divine appointments, asking, God, is this on purpose? You don't just have the job you have because you're a great interviewer or because you got that degree. No, it's because God placed you. You don't just live on the street you live on just because, oh, that was just a good house to be in. No. It's because God has a purpose for you there, at that residence, for the people that live around you. God is working around you. Will you see it? I started this morning saying that I've seen God work in my life in ways that I would not have been bold enough to ask. I hope you can say the same. I guarantee you Ruth and Naomi could. That God was working in their situation in ways they would not have been bold enough to ask. But what about you? Do you have great expectations of our great God? Or do you just expect the status quo? No big deal, no change. As your pastor, I want to point you to our great God who can do all things beyond what we think or imagine and who desires to do them in, through, and around you. Let's pray.